Hey everyone, looks like we are live. We made it to yet another Wednesday. Thank you so much for hanging out. So, I hope everyone is having a good week. It's Wednesday, it's late, well, mid February. We have yet another snowstorm coming, so it's going to be exciting. I got a couple of products to share with you guys today throughout the live stream, which will be a lot of fun. And I hope that, we'll just, talk about art, hang out, and, inspire each other. That's the main thing, right? That's what we have to do. We have to inspire one another. So let's see who we have here. We have a lot of great people here. We have Mr. JC all the way from Atlanta. How are you today? Great to see you. Mr. Dan all the way from Indianapolis. Great to see you. We have Mr. Steve Leahy from Ohio, hailing out of Massachusetts. We have the redhead artist, Patty. Great to see you from Illinois. Dwayne Marshall, all the way from San Luis de Obispo. Go Mustangs, not banana slugs. We have Kyle, all the way from Pennsylvania. Great to see you. Brian Moore, all the way from Ohio. Fantastic. Go Reds. Go Bengals. And so that is cool. What a great group we have already today. So we've been working on this. Yeah, Dan, we've had enough snow, right? That's first thing I want to show you is I went to Aldi's and I was basically food shopping as I do every now and then. And I found these paintbrushes. How cool is that? So they cost me $3. We're going to test them today. So next time you're at Aldi's, you'll look these up. They're called the Pembroke. Let me make my smaller. Pembroke paintbrush set. You get 7 brushes for like $3.99. Not bad. And let's open them up together. What I really liked when I first played with them, how soft they were. And let's see. Oh, you were there today. Check these out when you get a chance. So as I look at ones I would use, like this right here is a flat. Let me see which way do I pull it? That's what she said. And so basically, you have that right here. It looks pretty darn good. See if I can focus that for you. Great folks here. It feels nice and soft, almost like a sable, you know? So these are from Aldi's they're all over the country, Aldi's, which are really great. And you get a whole bunch of them. Let's see. You get 7 of them. Looks like you get a nice liner brush, a couple of nice rounds, a shader with an angle. You have a nice small flat brush here. So we'll see how it goes throughout the painting and see, well, the painting's been going on a long time, but we'll see how it goes throughout the night. Not out there. Oh, yeah, Aldi's are pretty good. They're a German company, so it's pretty neat. I have my wet palette. I'm going to show you my palette cam. So I think my camera is a little funky here. Michael McClung, how you doing all the way from Maryland? Great to see you. How are you today? So here's my palette cam. As you can see, I have my little well here, and this is my wet palette. And the most important thing is to make sure you cover it, when you're not using it. So I have a disposable, so this is pretty cool. I decided to start using disposable palette paper as my mixing area. So this way I'm not affecting, the wet palette paper. And so I have all my colors here. And you see it goes with the colors of the rainbow. One thing when you're working with acrylic and put a lot down. If you put a lot down, it'll stay wet a lot longer. So I definitely would. So you see, I'm not being too precious. Now I put these up on Sunday, and let's see how they are. So that's going to be pretty cool to see just how wet they are from Sunday. Now I know these are my open acrylics by Golden. They're going to stay wet, but like this one, this is just Heavy Body by Golden, and you can see it's really juicy, you know? I mean, it's really great. So definitely, and then also you have this sprayer. It's not like a regular spray bottle. It's more like a empty hairspray. And I just kind of missed it because acrylics will dry when the water evaporates. So your job is to keep it as humid as possible. So even if you just spray over it, you're increasing the humidity around the wet palette, which is very, very important, you know? So great to see everyone. Thank you so much. The first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and lighten this first. And I want to go ahead and do a dusting of my raw sienna because there's some areas where I had the orange and white mixture where I kind of, how do you say, overextended myself and kind of made a little chalky in the light. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that with you all. So I have my brushes here, and we're going to go ahead and take care of this. So let's see. I'll be right back. And let's see what we have here. Okay, now I'm going to take one of my airbrushes here. It's the Extreme Patriot 105. And I still have paint in there from last week. And like I said, you can leave your paint from last week in there. As long as you keep it wet, you're going to be just fine. Let me turn on my compressor. Okay. And my glasses, which are very important. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to make sure that everything is in focus. I think we're in focus. I think that's good. All right, so I have my little pipette. I'm going to grab some water, and I'm just going to clean out what I have in this airbrush, and we're going to put some raw sienna in there. Just get rid of what's in there. So the weather's getting a little bit warmer, almost in the 50s, I think, today, even though it rained all day, but that's nice. And I'm going to grab some of this. And then get some paper towel here. So what I'm going to show you later tonight is going to be a real exciting or brand, what do you say, like opening, you know? So of a new art supply I purchased. It's going to be very exciting, so stick around for it. It's going to be amazing. And it's something that, you know, some artists will use with airbrush. And so it's going to be, you know, quite an enlightening thing. And I'm excited about it. So I'm at the end of my painting here. And we're going to start anew. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of me. We don't need to see me. And I'm going to grab my pre-mixed raw sienna. So let's see, where would my pre-mixed raw sienna be? I think that's right here. Now, I use golden paint as well as Createx Wicked paint, and you want the consistency to be that of ink. When you're that, yes, very true. This is going to be fun, definitely. And I think I'm going to inspire you guys to ask Santa for an early Christmas present. I'm going to see how this works. Like I said, you don't have to clean your brushes all the time. As long as you keep them wet with paint in there, you should be fine. And let's see. Just got to blow this out, I think. Make sure there's no tip dry. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of just pump that trigger and kind of even out some of the kind of chalkiness. Oh, look at that. Michael says he's on the naughty list. That's pretty funny. And let's go ahead and just kind of pump that trigger. And I want to get rid of just some of the chalkiness here. And I'm not afraid to go over the eyes because you want some of that flesh color in the sclera. Just kind of pumping that trigger, kind of softening everything. And it's really important to do that. Put some more light on there. You don't want to overdo it, but I'm just pumping that trigger from about 6 inches away. Down here in the breast area. Just pumping that trigger. And then once in a while, you'll have a regular piece of paper and you'll just make sure that your airbrush is working satisfactory, and it is. Yes, so I heard you won one of Steve Leahy's masterpieces. That's amazing. Congratulations. So you see how it's really softening up that, hey, Mr. Roy, all the way from Jersey, great to see you, sir. I don't think I missed anyone coming in. Let's see. Nope, everything's good. I'm going to go ahead and just hit a little bit in the sclera. I don't want it to be too much contrast in her eye, even though it's, you know, it is definitely an area where, there's a lot of interest and everything. We just want to make sure we don't overdo it. There we go. Now I feel like she's starting to soften up. When you're dealing with photonic realism, you want to make sure that all your transitions are compressed. You don't have too much contrast. That's very important, you know? You don't want too much contrast. In nature, there isn't that much contrast. We make it up because that's how we are, you know? So now I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to get my reference material, which I should have had up before. Let's see. Okay, there we go. We have my reference up here. And let me open up my file. Let's see. Nope, I don't have it. I'll just open it up. So I use a program called Krita. If you haven't used it, I highly recommend you get it. It's free. You just go on to krita.org and it's just amazing. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, hey, it's saying I have excellent, which is really good. I have excellent stream health, so that's good. It's always good to have good health, even if it's in stream form. And let's see. So I see more of a contrast in her part there. So I'm going to add that, but not right away because that's where this unboxing is going to be really exciting, I think. So we'll look forward to that. Let's see. Okay. What would be something we can work on? Okay, so I'm liking that now. Let's start working on the hair. So if I'm going to figure out what color we're going to do on the hair, it's almost pure black. So I can go just black and whatever color I want to use that with. So I'm going to go with the kind of the limited range here in the reds, oranges, and yellows here. So I'm going to do like a really dark brown, and let's go ahead and mix that together. Let's see. Come right over here. And mix this dark brown. I think this might be good. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think I nailed it. Maybe just a little bit darker. And what I want to do is I really want to start getting some of the fine contours here. And that's where we're going to find her likeness in the hairline, stuff like that. Oh yeah, JC's not on the list anymore. That's a good thing. Well, on the list for a Steve Leahy painting, well, you have next year. Oh, so JC says he loves Krita. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, it is a wonderful program, right, JC? As you can see, I'm just working on contour right now. I have Pure Ref, which is a really great program. If you haven't had the pleasure of using Pure Ref, I highly recommend it. Now, I have elements here of just purely abstract qualities, such as, using the really thick crackle paste by Golden here to get that feeling of almost, those paintings that you see from ancient Rome, like on the sarcophagi? They're really amazing. And that's basically what I'm doing now. I'm getting that kind of feeling. Hey, Bobby, great to see you all the way from Cape Cod. How's life treating you, sir? Now, there's a little more volume over here that I didn't get. Now, sometimes if I'm doing acrylic and I want a thicker sort of impasto, I'm going to show you what I add. And this is really cool. And I'm using the brush and I'm really happy with it thus far. So the Aldi brushes, they're incredible. So here's something really cool. It is golden extra heavy matte gel. And all it is just colorless acrylic and it's thick. So I'll show you exactly how I do it. To go to the palette right there, and I'm going to grab, make sure I get a halfway decent palette knife. I'm going to grab some of this. And like I said, this is all this is just colorless acrylic. And what I can do is create a much thicker paint. Now, of course, being colorless acrylic, it's going to lighten up your color. So you're going to have to introduce more of your mixture because of the introduction of the colorless acrylic. But now I don't have a watery mix, I have a thick mix. And if I want it even thicker, I can just add some more. And then I'll add that together. Now, why would I want to do that? Good question. Is now, if I wanted to, if I was ever so inclined, I may want to do something a little artistic. Maybe I want to add a thick layer of paint here for whatever reason, right? Because texture is a beautiful thing. So if I can show you, I can take some of that thick paint that I mixed thinly and I could apply that. And if I want it darker, I'll just mix more black to it. And then I'll get some really interesting impasto techniques. There are no rules here. And this is going to dry really thick, which is really wonderful. And that variation of texture is really going to go a long way for interest. Now, you notice that in the painting of her skin, it's very refined, it's very, very thin, very layered. And well, you can't add it with oil because acrylic and oil just don't mix. So this is really good if you're an airbrush artist because you can introduce uh, other other textures. So you don't have to go into oils or even straight acrylic if you want to express yourself in airbrush. You can go ahead and start adding things like acrylic paintbrush techniques, stuff like that. This is impasto, right? We can do really wild things like that. And you see, now it has a lot of interest and it's very thick, right? So you see how thick I've gone, which is really cool. And what I'm basically showing you all is that, there's more than one way to do something. And you know what? Like I said, there are no rules. And we can just sort of, and let the let the palette knife do some really interesting techniques here. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to mix more over here. So I'll go back to the palette. And the first thing I'll do is I'll grab some of my extra heavy gel matte medium by Golden. We'll put that right there. And what I'm hoping this live stream will accomplish is just letting you know that there's more than one way of doing things. And just, let your imagination go wild. And we're just going to mix some of my black here. So you get a wonderful brown, dark brown with black and orange. We can bring in our, see how we can make something very soupy into a very heavy body. And we can even get more heavy bodied if we so choose. So you can't mix oil and acrylic together. However, a very wonderful technique is mixing, actually painting oils on top of acrylic, which is really cool. Now right here we have this beautiful black. Let me come over here. We have this beautiful black. And I want to actually create some impasto here as well. Now the great thing about acrylic is that it's going to dry rather quickly. So it's kind of cool to use that on canvas and then do airbrush work. Exactly, because it's opening up a whole new element for you, right? Which you really we haven't thought about. And if your paint's not thick enough, add more of this extra heavy gel matte medium. And don't forget, for the last half hour, I'm going to open up the Pandora's box, which is the new element I'm going to share with you all. The new unveiling. Dun dun dun. And now just look how juicy and beautiful this paint I'm using here. Now, a lot of the paint that's on here is going to be already kind of dry before you know it. And I'm using a palette knife as opposed to just a paintbrush and airbrush. Now we'll let that dry, but also I want to add some elements of the hair, which is this beautiful light color right over here. There's this beautiful light right here. So let me mix that color. Go to my Gideon vector. Okay. We'll see how long it takes me to mix this color. Okay. Oh, gotta change this. All right, so I see exactly what we need to do. Just be one moment and I'll get that mixture together. And we know, okay, so I see what I have to mix. And then perfect. And finally, okay, so let me go ahead and mix this. So the first thing we have to do is mix that color. Well, that's not good. But see how fast acrylic has dried pretty quickly. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is make sure I get the saturation correct. And with Photonic Realism, there's a lot involved. Okay, since we went so thick with that hair, we're going to have to mix a thick paint here. Okay, we'll get more of our extra heavy gel matte medium. Put that on there. Yeah, I'm telling you, acrylic painting is really wonderful. It could kick your butt. But the thing is, your job is to make acrylics work like oil. And what do I mean by that is that acrylic will dry really fast. So your job is to find out a way to make it not dry so quickly. Let me add a little bit of black to this. More of our orange. A little bit of our red orange. Okay, I feel a little happy with this. Let's see what we have. Make sure I have my reference front and center. Where did my Pure Ref go? There it is. Okay, great. I'm going to come back in with that really nice dark of the hair. That's why I always say, make sure that, you try different mediums. It's not going to hurt your medium. It's actually going to help your other medium because you're seeing things in a different way. Okay. I'm going to go back to, so remember what I said about acrylic. Even with a wet palette, the thicker the acrylic is, the longer it will stay wet, right? The thinner, that water is going to evaporate rather quickly. So you want to make sure that you are, you're using a large volume of paint let me show you with the brush cam or the palette cam. See how wet this is right here, so I can pick up a good amount of this. It's still wet. We can kind of add some interest here. We can even go back after this is dry. Miss Patty, have a great night. Patty said she's leaving. Take care. I hope you have a great weekend. Don't work too hard. Thank you, Mr. JC. I appreciate that. Yes, you have to be a little free with that palette knife. You know, it's not a commission, so anything goes, you know? So I'm not worried. You know, it's not a commission, it's not work. This is more my own thing. If I want it darker, I'm just going to add some black to it. And now if I zoom out, you can see that her hair has a little bit of volume that I can go ahead and change later if I so choose. I can get much more refined if I want. That's no problem. And now we're at 10:08, so we have less than an hour away. So I'm going to put her aside and let this kind of dry here. And so you see, it's an acrylic painting. It's not just airbrush. Airbrush is like a paintbrush. It's like a palette knife, right? So I'm working in acrylic. I have airbrush. I have paintbrush. I have palette knife. You know, so it's free. You got to be free to use that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, my friend. So now we're going to put her aside, let that dry. And also, here's one thing about your wet palette. So right now, I'm not going to be using the wet palette for a little bit in this painting session. So what you want to do is you want to cover it because you don't want unnecessary drying, right? So if I left that exposed, I could lose like maybe 12 hours of work time because it'll start to cure and dry. So I got my palette knife, and not my palette knife, but I put my painting of her, and we'll put her right over here where she's nice and safe. So there's a lot of new things that I want to share with you. And so these brushes were really good at Aldi's. Check them out. So far, seems good. All right, so are you ready? Are you ready for the new thing? Here it comes. Oh man, look at this. So this is a set of 150 colored pencils by Prismacolor. Now, in art stores, they'll tell you that Prismacolor is not the best colored pencils. They'll say, oh, you know, Faber-Castell, Polychromos is better, DeWalt is better. But you know what? Better is what works for you, as Mr. Leahy said in his open studio earlier today. And so I just want to piggyback off of that. So you can see here, I've used these since the 90s, these Prismacolor Premier color pencils. Now I'm working on metal, but it's not going to be outside, so I don't have to worry about, you know, being on a car or anything like that. So anything goes when you're painting, you know. JC says, wow, congrats on your new toys. Thank you, my friend. So my friends here, you all are going to see this opening up. So you're going to open the unboxing. So here are all the colors. Look at how crazy that is, right? And we're going to be adding this to our details in her face. And so that's going to be really exciting. So I have a razor blade, Fiskars, which is really good. And it's not metal. It's not a metal case, unfortunately. You'd think it would be for 150. And let's just lightly score this. Softer than polys, but oh, thank you so much. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I've used these since I was a young man. And oh, wow, look at that. That looks really cool. I do like the softness, JC. That's exactly why I love them. So let's open this up and see what. Ooh, we need some sort of music like right? So look at these. So these are just, look at all these reds. Isn't that amazing, guys? And let's see if I can move this over. So you can see this is only half of them. So look at all of these beautiful reds into the magentas, into the flesh colors, right? You can imagine the detail that you can get. And here, there's the second layer. So you have your blues into your indigos, into your violets over here, into more of your flesh colors. Just about every shade under the sun, exactly. So I saved my money up to get this, because Tim's not a rich man. But you want to know something exciting? If it was just them, that would be exciting. But guys, look at this. There's yet another layer. Holy Toledo. That's crazy. You got sort of now your earth tones, right? And then on this side, you have all of your grays, your warm and cool grays, which is really super exciting. So we'll put these back. And so what do you think about Mr. Todd? How are you today? Great to see you. They are not cheap. No, not by any means. That's why it took me such a long time to save up my money to get these. And so Mr. Air Todd all the way from San Diego. Great to see you. So, and then it comes in a nice, now one of the things that are kind of rough about the Prismacolor is that it takes a while. I mean, they're really hard to sharpen, right? I have some Prismacolors I got to show you that are probably older than most people that I work with. So here are some Prismacolors from the late 80s and early 90s. So we have some Karan Daash. So look how these are really old. I had a set of 48 that I purchased a long time ago. But yeah, some of these are probably, 35 years old. So that's one of the reasons why I do like the Prismacolor, is because they last forever. And that's amazing. So, and you can see my set is depleting, right? So maybe I have about 35 in there. So, and I was like, there are no rules when painting. So I was figuring, what if I started coming in with colored pencils at the very end to do some of that beautiful technique that I learned in my artistic life, and start introducing that to the final stages of my painting. And we're going to go over that and see how that goes. So these are still going to be in rotation, but these are going to probably be more front and center, right? So we'll put these over here, and I could make sure I take my water well and bring that over to where it's safe. Now, the great thing about working in acrylics is that they dry really fast. But I'm working very thickly, so they might not be drying all that fast. Remember, the thicker it is, um, the slower it's going to dry. It's going to work like oil. So let's see. I'm just going to tap it. And they're still wet. So we have to stay away from the hair. But let's go ahead and see if we can add some detail to her eyes there. Now, I had an ultimate set of grays. So I'm going to move this, and I know where my grays were. And this way, I could really nail that sclera. We'll see how it goes, right? That sclera is pretty darn dark, and it's warm. So let's see this one right here. And you see how I could really start darkening that sclera a little bit. And we're going to work with the sclera with the colored pencils. And I can even go a little darker if I am so inclined. Now I got to be careful of that paint in her hair because it's still wet. And I can deepen that up even some more and go even darker. Let's see. Right here. Right here we can go even darker. Especially over here where the eyeball starts going inside the head. And Mr. JC said he did notice on the Prismacolor, if you have a heavy hand, be careful because it could actually break the lead easier than the polys. Yes, so here's the big thing about the Prismacolor is that you notice that if we zoom in here, let me see if we could zoom in. See how a lot of times with the Prismacolor, it's not centered? The fact that it's not centered, it's going to have a harder time sharpening. So when I sharpen these, I don't use a regular pencil sharpener. I'll use a blade. That's the best way to do it. Otherwise, your pencil sharpener is going to keep breaking. And before you know it, you're going to have, you know, you're going to have no more colored pencil because you're going to keep breaking and sharpening and breaking, right? So, and that's basically my travels of using it over the years has been, the biggest problem with that. And you can see I'm actually darkening that sclera, and now it's looking more realistic. And now I could work on, let's go ahead and work on darkening the dark side of her eye. Now this is a really dark kind of brownish color, but I think it's the one we need. And since I'm here, I could shape the iris a little better. And JC says you use a blade as well. Plus, they seem to last longer when you use a blade versus the pencil sharpener. Yes, so true, my friend. So when I'm like at a very advanced level, I'm not going to jeopardize the whole painting by going in with airbrush when I could do that just as well with colored pencils. I don't always work this way, but it's nice to know that you have that option. I can get some of those crisp lines around the eye, you know. And like everything else, just make sure that you're always doing the 1 second rule. Same stuff applies. Now let's do some of the juicy pinks that are in there. I'm having a good time with all of these colors, my friends. Let's see. So that is a very dull pink. And we actually have this very dull pink here, which is a lifesaver. We can use that same pink to kind of work on the eyelid here. Like I said, there's no rules here. Thanks, JC. She's giving you the eye. I appreciate that, sir. So now we got that little corner of the eye there. And I could stick with this eye a little bit longer. And let's see. Oh, we have this, which is this wonderful kind of violet color here. We can kind of put this in. Now we can kind of work on that iris. And let's see. Yes, so I'm going to go back to that dark brown color that we love. Right here. Let's work on this iris. Now it's darker on the outside of the iris, of course. And then we can use this for her mass of the eyelashes. And then we could hit on some of the individual hairs in the eyebrow. JC says, awesome buy, Tim. Like a kid, the candy store, awesome deal. Hate to leave you, but you, all right. Have a great night, Mr. JC. Always a pleasure. Thanks for hanging out with me. Michael says, loving having them by me when I erase my pencil lines and put that in. Yes, definitely. Just darkening that. Now we can come in with some a beautiful black. see, really pop this iris, I mean a pupil. Some little eyelashes on the lower eyelid here. Now, can we pop that out with just white? That's the question, right? Let's see. This is an off-white. We'll see how this works. Oh, wow. Look how that pops, guys. We'll pop a little bit of moisture right there. And it looks like we can come back in with that gray here. Kind of define this area right here. And let's calm down this dark here. Whoops, that's not dry yet, so be careful. So you see I'm going from like, staunch control to a little more, free with the palette knife and going back and forth now. But look just how much more life is in her eyes now. Really nice. And we can come in with something that's not too dark in her hairs of her eyebrow here. Okay. Now that's a little strong. I think the way that kind of, that little area in the corner of her eye there. See if I can chill that out a little bit. There we go. Just chill it out just a little bit. There we go. So I'm liking it. Now I want to go a little bit darker on the inside of the upper ledge of her lower eyelid. See that? That's what I'm looking for. Definitely. All right, now I'm pretty happy with that. I think that was successful. Let's see what else we can do. On this eye, it's really very, how do you say, it's very smoky, atmospheric. So I may neglect going over there, but if you look at this, you really can't see that colored pencil was involved, but you can also notice the amount of control that I have with that. And I'm not jeopardizing all the hard work I did on this painting by going in with airbrush, because invariably I would have to fix things and go back. So now we're working on her lips, and there are dark wrinkles. And as you can see, if I go to look at all these colors I have to choose from, that's super exciting, right? So I have a lot of colors to choose from, which is great. And so I want to look for the shadows in the lips. So let's go back here. So I'm looking at all of these colors, and as I look at that, it's like a dark rose color, right? So it may not be right in where the actual rose colors are. Now, I'm also a pastel painter. What does that mean? I'm used to working with dry paint. So this is kind of right up my alley. So this color looks pretty darn good. And let's zoom in together and see if we can work on some of these striations of her lip here, or bottom lip, more specifically. Let's see. Okay, here goes nothing, honey. Now, I think that's good. What do you all feel? I think that's good for a nice striation or wrinkle in her lip. This one up here. Now, any questions about, colored pencils, how to use them, when to use them, that sort of thing? Oh, thanks so much, Bobby. Yeah, I think it nails that color of the wrinkles here. Now, some may say, like, wow, you're cheating. Cheating? There's no rules here. Now that I have those darks, it's going to kind of make sure they're not equidistant or the same size. Now I'll come in with the light. Now the light is a light red, so I'm going to look for a very beautiful light red, almost a pink. Again, you want to make sure that these lights are not the same size or equidistant. Kind of stagger them a little bit. Now here on the light side of her face, it's going to be a lot more, a lot lighter on the right side of the face. So I really recommend getting some of these. I mean, it's for about $150 US. I mean, it adds a lot of advantages to you. And you see that went too far. There we go. Now look how beautiful that's looking, guys. And we can adjust that. Now, if the light's coming this way, the dark is going to be facing away, and the light's going to be facing the light. So we're kind of going to go that direction. Let's see what we have here. So the light is facing the light source. $1 a pencil. No, more like $4 a pencil. $1 a pencil in the set. Yes, my friend, that is so true. And when I lift this, you're going to see just how amazing it's going to look when we zoom out. Now right here, it's really not pink. It's more of a light yellow. And you don't have to go crazy with detail, you know, less is more. But here we have this beautiful light yellow here. But notice we have this beautiful, beautiful kind of heaviness with the palette knife, and then we're coming in with the most delicate adjustment with these colored pencils. And let's take a look. So right now it looks like nothing's happening, but we're going to see when we pull it out. Just how much more detail we have with her, right? She's starting to come alive little by little. Now let's work on her nostril area, because right now it's a little bit colorless, and we have to add some nice color to that. So we're looking for like a really dark, almost like a burgundy, like when I mean burgundy, like a burgundy red, in a sense like the wine from Burgundy. And I'm looking for in my reds, and I think I have it right here, which just is a beautiful color right here. See if I can put this in here. Same thing coming down, right down here. And all of this, all of this very, very soft, beautiful work is really because of all the hard work that I've done with the airbrush, right? So one does lead to another. Now it may look harsh right now, but that's okay, because it's from a distance that we are exhibiting our work. And it's a little bit darker over here, so we'll bring some of this kind of deeper red right over here. And also there's a beautiful dark right underneath here. And now let's bring in some of that really nice, rich skin color of her lips here. Let's see. Something like this. Okay, now we'll zoom out. And now I feel like we really are starting to get a lot of emotion in the painting, which I didn't have before. And I could move around a little bit. Now, going back to that nice burgundy color here, I can work on this mental fat compartment, this mentalis right there. We can work on a little shape here on her chin. And I could do all this with the airbrush. I can do it with the paintbrush, but this is how I'm deciding to do it today. So you want to always make sure when you're making decisions with your painting that just be intentional. This is how I'm going to work on it. When I was saving this up, saving up my money, I was like, this is my intention. This is how I'm going to do it. Now, I want to darken this area right here, like right over here where I'm seeing a little more dark on the corner of her eye. So with Photonic Realism, I want to stay with the longer wavelengths, right? So over here in the corner of her eye. It is smoky, but I want some definition I'm going to bring back. Now, I'm going to check and see if that paint is dry. It is. So you know the heavy paint that we did? It's basically dry. Isn't that cool? So, but now we have this world where we're coming in with some really heavy impasto and kind of a little more painterly, and then doing some real tight detail. And that kind of contrast is nice. So before she wasn't looking very naturalistic. I feel that we're getting that now. Now let's come back with that beautiful highlight, right? And that highlight in the eye, I'm going to go with a yellow. Right here. I'm going to make it a little more theatrical, even though you won't see that highlight. I'm just going to make it more theatrical. Now let's do some beautiful highlights in her nose. Typically the alar cartilage right here. Just give her some life. We have some really nice highlights that I'm going to come in, just like I do with the white pastel when I'm working in my India ink and airbrush paintings. So Mr. McClung says he thinks sometimes with the portraits that he chooses to bite off more than you need to. Explain that to me, sir, a little bit deeper. So with the portrait that you're working on now, if you incorporate at the very end, like I'm doing, at the very end with uh, colored pencils, I think it would really take it to a new level. Look at how more alive she's coming, Michael. Is because I waited. I didn't come into this too early. And get yourself that 150-piece set of Prismacolors. And I'm going to be doing this on my live streams in the future, so you'll have a lot of information to work from. So I'm going to use the lavatory real quick. Please Okay, I am back, guys, and this time it's personal. So my drink of choice is peach tea by Brenner, Benner, which is also by Aldi's. So we have the brushes by Aldi's, and we have the iced tea. So I think that this live stream is brought to you by Aldi's. All right, now classes. Let's go ahead, start making some of these forms turn. Now, remember that in Photonic Realism, light acts as particles. That's why you see light kind of builds up like snow and tapers off. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm aware of the particle nature of light and also the wave-like nature of light. Here, right here, we have the zygomatic bone coming into play right here. Right here on the corner of the eye is a blast of light. Because remember, the light is coming from this way. So we're going to see that blast of light. So, Bobby, Mr. Mike, when you say it seems like you bite off more than you can chew, I just think that with a portrait, you have to take your time and let it evolve. I didn't come into this. You can see this is like the sixth or seventh live stream that I'm working on this portrait. So I'm letting it grow. I'm letting it ferment, right? Before I start thinking about, the later stages such as this. And anyway, I think you do a great job with your portraits. And what we have to do is stick with this. So sometimes the airbrush is not the best tool for a portrait. I mean, in certain aspects of the portrait, the airbrush is the best tool. But something like a colored pencil and finding the right color and kind of nailing that particle nature of photons or wave packets, colored pencil seems to be a much better choice. Notice I'm sort of tapping that, right? Which is really important. And let's zoom out and just see how she's shaping up. And, I have to say, I'm happy with the naturalism that is happening, and also the contrast of the impasto techniques up here. So when you're doing stuff like this, you kind of going into the realm of fine arts, of doing something that is more avant-garde and more individualistic as far as technique goes, and that's okay. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. It's unexpected. You're going, Bobby says she's coming alive. Thank you, my friend. That means more to me than you know. Because now I'm kind of working on the light aspects of her, you know. And you see, light acts as a particle here, so it's going to act like snowflakes, and that's the particle nature of light. Yes, that is so true. You just got to keep going, right? And she will come alive. And that's the thing is that you realize that, you don't you don't get too fine detail too early. And you notice that the values are not the values, but the colors are very close. Compression, right? That's what we are missing a lot of times in our work. We put too much contrast in values and colors, and you know, not to like, we need to soften those up more. And this is by far a white. This is it's more of a dark yellow, like a deep yellow, a gray down yellow with, a light value. Okay, so I'm feeling good about what's going on right now. Let's just lighten this up over here. Okay, now let's move on to her ear. Just a little indication. Now, here we have more of a rich orange that's coming over here due to subsurface scattering. Yes, so it's all about, getting that whole thing about the surface, right? And getting that surface texture. And that only comes from keep at it, and then you'll eventually get there. So I did a lot of praying and about these colored pencils and a lot of soul searching. And I'm really happy that I pulled the trigger this evening. And now there's a rich dark that's over here. And I'm going to go back to this burgundy color here. See if we could just kind of establish that dark, which is really nice. A little darker right here on the underplane of the lower eyelid. Now, normally I would go into the skin of her, and that's something I'll do off camera, but let's kind of play with the hair a little bit. Let's see what we can do. Now remember, the colored pencils are going to be working on this kind of opaque area, but let's play with it. Let's see what we can do with it, right? Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Now it's nice because I can add some kind of wispy detail here, kind of match that color that I put in the hair. And now I could kind of add some of those broad strokes to add some life to it, to get her hair looking less abstract and a little more realistic. There, Todd, thank you so much. And thank you, Michael, for saying she looks awesome and she looks good. I appreciate that. Little by little, she gets there. We have some wispy hairs here, some lights. See if I can lighten her up a bit for you. So I'm thinking Rembrandt, I'm thinking more painterly approaches here. But I'm really loving this texture here and kind of the layering back and forth, you know? No rules. Mr. Air Todd, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. So who out there is gonna, what airbrush artist out there is really seriously thinking about getting this 150 piece set of Prismacolors? Because the more you have, the better it's gonna work for you, okay? So think about that. Now we have this kind of nice gray color. Maybe we'll add that because this looks like it's a little strong. There, Todd, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. It really helps, and it's very encouraging, my friend. So thank you so much for that. And I may come back in later tonight and come back in with some airbrush or something like that. So just kind of working back and forth. But I'm really loving the fact that we're kind of playing with texture as well. Bobby says, I don't know. He has a set in studio. What brand it is, probably Master's Touch or something. Well, that's a good start, right? Okay, let's darken this a bit. Okay, just a tad. There we go. Just add a little bit of light right here. Just the tiniest little light right there. And like I said, I can come back in with the hair. I can do a lot of different things. I'm not limited, only limited by my own, my own self. So I could do a lot of different things to express myself with this painting. Now what I can do is I want to bring in some light here into our sternocleidomastoid. So let's see if we can do that together. This is a very interesting kind of dark yellow color, but it's still lighter than what's around it, so this might serve us. It does, right? It's lighter, but it's not going to fight her face, where I want, the real attention to be. Just come down here. So here's the sternocleidomastoid coming down from behind the ear. It's in front of the trapezius here, and then comes all the way down and attaches to the clavicle at this point, and the sternum. And I can soften this up so there's less contrast here at the corner of the mouth. Remember, it's all about reducing contrast, right? Bobby says it's not 150 pieces like that. It's got colored pencils, some graphite pencils, blenders. Oh, I see. Yes. Those sets are pretty cool. But if you can get your hands on something like this, I think it would be great. So she really is kind of coming alive, right? Now there is some light hitting her clavicle right here. And I'm just going to address this right here. Not much, just a tiny little bit of light hitting this clavicle. And what's that going to do? It's going to define a little bit anatomically, which is good. See how I'm defining this clavicle right here now? Same thing over here. There's just a little bit of light just kissing her clavicle right here. Let's give us some definition. Right here in her throat area. Just have a little light here, a little separation from the sternocleidomastoid. Just these little subtle hints of light will actually change the forms and make the forms actually stand out more. Separate those forms. Same thing here. Get a little better here. So today I worked a full shift and I was like, how am I going to do this live stream? And, you know, it pretty much worked its way out. You know, I took a little nap and I was able to do it because of great people like yourselves. I was excited to see us. So I'm looking for a dark gray. A dark warm gray. Let's hit this right over here. See, right here we have this really beautiful dark here. It's a little darker than what's around it and kind of separates what's behind her ear from her ear and creates a hard edge. Hard and soft edges are created for how far they are from what's behind it. And her ear is a little ways behind the sternocleidomastoid here. So that's why we have a hard edge. So we have to know why there's a hard edge. You don't have to know why there's a hard edge, but it's always good to know. Now let's look at the cleavage area, which there is some definition here. And I'm going to come back in with the airbrush and kind of go back and forth, which you can do with colored pencils and airbrush. And it's funny because I always say, make sure you don't try and get a likeness. The likeness will happen on its own. So don't try and get a likeness. I haven't tried to get the likeness, and the likeness arrived. The beautiful, like I said, the separation of a hard edge and a soft edge is how far one form is from another. So her chin is much further up. So from her throat, and so we're going to darken her throat here. So I want to go even darker than this. This is basically black, but it's okay. Because I want that separation. Right here, I'm going to work on this edge right there. Look how beautiful that dark edge is there. I just made it pop. I'm going to really make that iris pop as well. Not the iris, but the pupil. Oh, well, just in retail somewhere, Mr. Todd. I don't want to mention it, but, just keeping it on the DL. But yeah, so I'm doing retail right now, some customer service, just to, not to pay the bills, but to augment my income. A part-time job is usually a right thing to do. If you're an artist, a part-time job is really good. This is a beautiful hard edge right here. So I'm going to accentuate that hard edge right there. So again, hard edges and soft edges are products of how close or far away one form is from another. Yeah, exactly, Bobby. Little extra money is, just feels good. And I do mean extra money, not rich by any means. It's just very expensive to live in the Northeast, right, sir? See if I can zoom out a little bit. So that's what we're working on right now. We're getting there, right? There's no rush. So in all of my years of airbrushing and pastel painting and all of that, basically it all comes down to, you know, using every tool that you have, right? You want to make sure that you use every tool at your disposal. Now, we do see a little bit of her scalp, so let's see if we can put that in. It's like a dark yellow. Honestly, I'm very excited about this technique of, I always use colored pencils here and there, but I'm very excited about, the technique of, um, you know, using a large set, which is important. So that's a little, so it's definitely more of a dark yellow. So let's come over here. Let's take a look at this here. As you can see, we're going to put in the part of her hair. So Bobby agrees, right? How expensive it is to live in the northeast of the U.S. And I'm sure it's expensive to live out there, Todd, in San Diego, right, sir? One of the more beautiful places in the United States. Going to make this anti-helix under here, trying to make it turn. So guys, I think that's going to be it for now. So this is pretty much uh, what we're doing. I may do another week. I'm not sure. What do you guys think of the combination of the color pencils on top of the airbrush? Do you think it's something that you may want to try? Let me know. But I really think that if we look at where we started, we did some airbrush to kind of get rid of some of the chalkiness in the lights I did with the orange and white mixture last week. Came in with some paintbrush technique and the extra heavy matte gel and really did some really cool impasto techniques and everything like that. So I think this was a very good live stream. We went over Aldi's pencils, Aldi's brushes, Prismacolor, the 150 set, and also some peach tea from Aldi's as well. Ah, thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate that. And Michael McClung says the crab cakes are getting expensive in Maryland. Oh man, that's terrible. Oh, thank you so much, Dwayne. Dwayne says it looks great. Guys, have a great weekend. I really enjoyed it. I may work on it tonight because I'm having fun before I actually just fall asleep at the easel. Take care, my friends. Always a pleasure. Have a great weekend. And I hope to talk to you guys and ladies soon. Bye, everybody.